Hello, Juan.
Hola, ¿cómo estás? How do you do?
Good, good, very good. Well, I have a cold, so
Oh,
yeah, no, I'm okay. I can participate. I just think I may have to relinquish the title of facilitator. I might not be able to do it because I
okay.
have a bad cough.
Ok. Bienvenida como facilitadora.
Someone else can do it. Would you like to be facilitator?
¿Ya va?
Oh,
No,
uh,
ahorita no. Not
oh.
yet.
I feel the same way, actually. I was actually yesterday when Jacques
Sí,
said I was
todavía
kind of
tengo
scared.
miedo escénico.
Uh, okay, I don't know if I'm getting translations.
Bueno, estás con nosotros, estás en buenas manos. Vamos
Okay.
siempre a ayudar a que lo hagas bien.
Sorry, my
Tampoco
translations are not working.
la conexión, ¿no?
Mhm.
Ah, ok.
Uh,
No, la conexión está un poquito mal.
Ah, I see the translation now. Oh, okay.
Eh, no importa cómo lo hagas, yo sé que lo vas a hacer bien. Eh, y va a ser la primera vez y serán muchas veces que vas a hacer este papel, así como cada uno de nosotros lo vamos a hacer también.
Hello. Oh,
Hola, buenos días, Marta.
hi. How
What?
are you?
Ugandan.
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
Kan goed, dankie. Are you both well?
I am a bit sick. I have a cough, so I think I'm going to withdraw from trying to be facilitator today. I may have to turn off my mute if I have a cough. I have a cold, and unfortunately, every time I get a cold, it always goes down to my lungs and I start coughing, sometimes uncontrollably. So I don't think that will be very good if I'm trying to facilitate.
And coughing. Well, should we wait and see who else? Juan, are you interested in facilitating?
No, todavía no. Vamos a ver cómo lo hace Vi.
B said
La
she
vamos a
doesn't
ayudar.
want to, but B says she doesn't, she can't. Let me quickly see if I can get Jacques' agenda.
I believe I do.
Here's the agenda.
Yes. Well,
At
I
least
remember there are three components, and the first one was a continuation of how the team is trying to grow personally and as a group according to the 7 core values. And the second agenda, I believe, was David.
I have it right here, so I can show
Yes.
it.
And he wanted to bring up the possibility that the two design teams merged in some way. I think that was actually, I
Hi,
read the
Kona.
last transcript, thank you. And hi, Kona. And
Hi, good morning.
and I think you'd already discussed that a bit.
Hi, Kona. You just missed
Hello.
B said hi. B just said she didn't feel like facilitating because she's feeling sick and coughs
It's just a
uncontrollably.
cough, which is a bit
Aw.
unpredictable.
Sure.
Because we're quite happy
I'm
to
having
have
a-
you facilitate.
Hola, Kona.
But
Hola, Juan. Buenos días.
Muy buenos días. ¿Cómo estás tú?
Muy bien. Gracias.
Me alegro mucho.
that's so sweet. So I've got uncontrollable laughter.
We need more of it.
That's true.
So B, so you were
Sí.
discussing B does not necessarily want to
Un poquito
facilitate.
mala la conexión. A veces
Oh, yeah, your face is frozen, but your voice is not.
Hmm.
There, you're back. I know David is still moving, and I cannot remember what he said in the emails, whether or not
He's
he
not
would
gonna
be
make
with us
it.
today.
He's
Okay.
not going to make it. Yeah.
So, I think, have all four of us gone through these questions? I think
No,
we
we
have on
haven't.
this agenda. We haven't? Okay.
Yes, I did. I tried to email something to people, and then I made an attempt to translate it all into Spanish. But I run into a problem on Google Translate because I don't have a desktop. And so, unfortunately, you know what? I can maybe find that email and maybe do it at work where I do have a desktop, and perhaps it'll be easier to copy and paste because it just wasn't letting me on my phone.
I could help you with that if you, but I was just wondering, do you want to just lead us in, or do you want somebody else to take over the facilitation? Because
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't mind
or a
trying.
prayer. Yes. Why don't
However, okay, I'll try.
And
I'm just warning you, if I start to cough, I will have to go and turn off my microphone so I
perfect.
don't disturb everyone. Okay, so I
Perfect.
want to start off by saying that I have never facilitated, and so I'm nervous, but I'm going to try. But I need your help. I need your support and understanding and patience. Okay, so I'm actually, oh, sorry, Kona, go ahead.
So we're developing the role of facilitator both within the MU design team and also within this team. And that's something that I've been working with Daniel Raphael on, is the role of the facilitator. So I'm going to just give you a couple of things to think about to maybe reduce your anxiety and to focus on. So the facilitator, the main responsibility of a facilitator is not just an agenda, but it's reading the room, making sure that each person is acknowledged and heard and contributes fairly, and also just to witness any distress, discomfort, expressions that might indicate somebody wants to speak, but they're not necessarily going forward. It's really to be emotionally intelligent with the people in the room to facilitate dialogue. That's the main purpose of the facilitator, is to get people into and to help with dialogue. That's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. That's very helpful.
Sure.
Emotional intelligence is one of the challenges for me. So what I would have to do as a facilitator is to make sure that everybody hopefully feels comfortable speaking up. And I will try to, as a facilitator, remember to ask Juan if he has any input, because he's, I guess he doesn't speak as often. So I would want to make sure that he would have every opportunity and feel comfortable sharing his ideas, even if they are in Spanish. We are very patient here. So, And if I could ask for the assistance of Kona and Marthe in case I forget. But it is my intention to make sure everybody participates as they wish.
And
Does anybody want to, Marthe? Yes, please.
I was just saying to remind us all to start with either silence or a prayer, or asking Sondjah, whatever you prefer.
No, I was just going to ask if anybody would want to do the opening. I think a period of silence is a good idea. Does anybody have a watch or a way to keep time? Did somebody? It's hard for me to do it on my device.
I can watch on my phone.
Okay. What do people suggest? 1 minute?
Try
2
2.
minutes?
Mhm.
Okay, 2 minutes. All right. Let's do it. And then afterwards, does anybody want to do an opening or opening prayer? I guess I could try.
Or give it a shot.
Why don't I try? Okay, all right. Okay, so let's start with our moment of silence.
That concludes our 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Kona.
Gracias.
Right, I will attempt an opening prayer, my first. Dear Father, Christ Michael, dear Mother Nebudonia, and dear all entities that are loyal to the first source and center, we gather here today in attempt to serve ourselves and you, and we attempt to contribute to the Supreme Being's experience. I want to thank Spirit for creating this space for us, where I hope that you can assist us to encircuit our thought adjusters, our hearts, our minds, as we proceed on this important task. Thank you very much for any guidance that you would offer us as we strive to use the 7 core values in our personal lives and in this group. I express great gratitude for this co-creative opportunity. Amen.
Amén.
Amen. Thank you.
Gracias, gracias.
It was a
Vic.
beautiful one.
Thanks, I tried. All right, now, what do we want? How do we want to proceed? I read the transcript from last week. Thank you very much, Marthe. And so I understand that there was some discussion already around the how the 7 core values were being applied in our lives. So does anybody have any suggestion on how we might move forward? Is there anything that needs to be discussed?
Maybe,
Does anybody have any questions?
thank you. I was hoping that maybe Kona can just explain to us what she had done in the previous meeting to discuss how it affected everybody's life.
Sure. Let me, so if you scroll down on that agenda, just a little bit.
I'm just going to get it here. Yeah.
I started off by giving a personal example of how I am allowing the 7 core values to operate in my life and my noticing. And for me, the most dramatic way, of course, is being a parent, grandparent to small children. And what does that look like? And so for another example, a new example that you haven't heard. So in my morning hours with a 3-year-old who wakes up, you know, ready to go, sleeps in dad's room, and I can hear that I'm having my coffee. You know, that's my quiet space. First thing in the morning, I get up, try to get up around 5 or earlier, and I'm having my coffee, and I hear the chaos in the bedroom, and you know, he's being loud, and dad's trying to get him to calm down, and he doesn't want to get dressed, but now he's fighting with socks, and he comes out, and you know, and then he wants to do this and he wants to do that. And, you know, in my personal self, I'm going empathy, compassion, and love. Empathy, compassion, and love. Emanate empathy, compassion, and love. How am I going to do that this morning with, you know, at 6 o'clock in the morning with a demanding 3-year-old who's very intelligent, right? And so, you know, he tries different things. And I'm recognizing, you know, patterns of behavior that he does for coping. And while we're like, he still likes a bottle. He's a 3-year-old who still likes a bottle. Okay, so what are we doing with that? Just trying, you know, it's a coping mechanism when he's cranky. You know, so at the same time, we're trying to gently wean him off. We understand that that's a coping mechanism. So I'm inclined to let him cry it out. And dad is inclined to say, let him suck on the bottle, right? So empathy, compassion, love. What is grandma going to do in the middle of this? And so he calms down. And then he wants breakfast, but he doesn't want breakfast at the table. He wants to eat breakfast at the sofa on a TV tray. And he's decided that's the way it's going to be. And so he's busy because he has this TV tray. It's like his little mini desk. All of his toys are all over it. And he decides he's going to have his breakfast there. So he gets busy clearing it off. And in my mind, I'm going, barely 3 years old, going to try to have milk and cereal at a TV tray. This could be a disaster, or it can be an opportunity for him to exercise his authority. He wants to do this. He wants to try something different. It's his creative being. So me as a grandparent, can I allow him the space to be his creative self, try something different and see how it goes. And if he makes a mess, then he has to learn how to clean it up. Can we go with this at 6 o'clock in the morning? Empathy, compassion, love. And so I decide, yes, let's let him do this, you know, and then it takes some coaching in. So he gets his breakfast set up. He moves his placemat over. He's got, you know, we use placemats and cloth napkins. So he moves his placemat over. He moves his cloth napkin over. And it's a little bit of a work, but it brought him so much joy. Instead of having his, you know, meltdowns and fussiness at the table, it brought him quite a bit of joy. And then I have the satisfaction of knowing that I'm allowing the creativity of a 3-year-old to develop, some autonomy to develop, some decision making to develop. And so that improves, that gives him the ability to grow. It gives him, you know, equality in making decisions, which will eventually improve his quality of life. So I'm valuing his life and his person, and I'm exercising and I'm improving and growing in my ability to exercise empathy, passion, and love at 6 o'clock in the morning over coffee. So that literally was my thought processes this morning and how these things daily are impacting. That's my share. So if you would like to share maybe somewhere that these things are happening in your life, that's been our focus, is how are we doing this personally and as a team. And I will add this side note that I had a meeting this morning with Donna D'Angelo of the ICC. And so some of these concepts were coming up in our meeting and the things that we're doing for the work that she's doing, which is completely separate. So I find, you know, that this work that we're doing to make these 7 core values very personal are already having an impact in our circle of influence. And I just wanted to share that.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed that story, and I think that's great that, you know, you consciously try to move out of your comfort zone in order to accommodate, you know, a young child. And I do have sort of a comment around that. I think that society is starting to change when it comes to how young kids are parented, obviously according to their temperament and their personality. But in my mother's generation, or even before that, and I think in Asia, but even here, I think the parenting style used to be quite authoritarian, and it was seen that the parents knew unequivocally what was best for the child at all times, and it was very uncommon or not done even to ever ask the child what they wanted or how, you know, how they wanted to learn, what they wanted to experience. So I think that's actually quite, I salute you for doing that, because it is hard to move out of your usual pattern of thought. And I think, and that's exactly what we're all trying to do here, is to, you know, explore other ways of thinking, like consciously being aware of our own thought patterns, and then really using the 7 core values to apply the best response, basically. And I think that's great. I think it's good to allow a 3-year-old that's obviously intelligent and headstrong, and then explore what he wants to do, because, you know, really, what's the harm in that, except that he makes a mess, and then you've already decided that you're going to hold him accountable for that, right? That's reasonable to me. I think that's awesome. I've been trying the same with my son. He's also very strong-minded. And he does struggle with emotional regulation. So that has been a challenge in our household. But I thought that, and I've learned also from speaking to his teachers, that you know, it's very important to validate how a child is feeling. And it's very important to take that into consideration when making your own decisions, and whatever decisions you make. I think it is important to treat that young person as a person with feelings. And I think that's a I think that's a good move in the right direction. And this will be useful when we design our family learning centers, because that will be an important concept that, you know, little people are still people. So you have to find, just like everyone else, you have to find a way to communicate with that other person who may not see the world or think the same way you do. Juan, do you have any comments? Juan?
No, no tengo comentarios ahorita. Gracias.
Okay. Marthe, do you have anything to share?
I do have something to share, but I also wanted to say I was touched by your story. And just wanted to say that my late husband and my son had a bottle far beyond 3. And my late husband, when I was ready to say goodbye to it, he said, let him decide. And George was 8. I was an old mother. I was 47 when my son was born. He was 18 years ahead of ahead of me. So he was in his 60s when his son was born. And our son decided in his own time. So I'm quite happy to. I know it's looked down upon, and people said to me, but Marthe, you must be ridiculous. But it soothed him and he got over it. But I wanted to talk maybe about my biases. I find love, empathy, and compassion very easy. Since I was a little girl, I loved people. I remember many times I feel that there's a little machine that manufactures love inside of me. I would look at people in New York where I was studying, and I often wanted to go up to people, and I realized I couldn't. So I do feel love for people. I very rarely don't feel love for people. So I'm often overcome with just feelings of lovely feelings from inside. Loving myself is maybe a little bit more complex and more difficult for me. And people often say to me, Marthe, you first, you second, you third, because I often prioritize other people. And Daniel also said to me, he said, B should have told you, be gentle with yourself. I'm often not gentle with myself. So self-love, and of course you can't love other people unless you love yourself. But I realize that my own needs are not often prioritized. And I do have a very busy life, and I often don't prioritize my own health. So it's clear to me. So that's one of the things, is that I struggle with my own, with loving, with caring, concerned loving for myself. And the other thing that struck me this week is my biases. People often tell me that I'm very, very generous, and I have been very generous. And but when people come to me and ask for something, and they don't do what my father used to get upset with me about. There was a time when I didn't have an income and I kept on working for 2 years. And my father was furious with me. He said, you don't have the luxury of doing things for no income. In the same organization, I'm still working. And so when somebody comes to me and they're not showing productive self-reliance, but they want to be helped, I find it really difficult. And I realize that I struggle with that because my father's views have been so imprinted on me And in a sense, they're very Calvinist. I don't know if the word Calvinist means anything to you. Well, obviously you're in a religious sense, but Calvinist, a sense of only through hard work will you get through the gates of heaven, or something that you always have to work harder than other people. And it's very much a part of our culture and the Afrikaner culture of working very hard and being disparaging about people who don't do the same. So I realized that I have part of that. I feed homeless people and have for years. There are 2 homeless people that I feed twice a week and give them money, and we have a good relationship. But when I asked one of them to do something for me and he didn't do it, I realized that I immediately had this thing of resentment coming up because I was being kind, but felt that I wasn't being respected. So in a sense, it reminds me of my ancestral emotions, that they're emotions that come down in the same way that B was saying about authoritarian parenting. Just the we know better, the sense of we, not only as parents know better, but we as the culture know better. And to not have respect for people who don't show that they're trying very hard. So I'm aware of these biases and assumptions, and maybe also as an Afrikaner, I did grow up in a culture where you thought you knew things about people. I remember years later when I came back from overseas where I'd studied and South Africa had changed, and somebody said, oh, that person is very wealthy. I'd wonder and have very stereotypical ideas about how people became wealthy. Because in my cultural understanding, those people only became wealthy if they had a fish and chip shop or vegetable shop. So I had very, very specific limiting ideas that that I still struggle with. So for me, it's interesting to be in a very different, I'm very grateful that I live in this South Africa, where as a white person, I'm not supposed to take leadership, because there was a time when white people claimed leadership for themselves. And so I'm in a very interesting position of wanting to help create justice and equality and growth for all the people who previously did not have growth and equality, because South Africa remains one of the most unequal countries in the world. But I also see that my so-called loving generosity has limits, and that those limits are informed by how my father treated me, what he expected of me. And imagining that if I had grown up differently, I would have had a different sense of self as well, because as you know, my mom died when I was 2. So there's a large chunk of my life, maybe in the same way that your 3-year-old who's missing a mom, but has a grandmother. So yeah, I guess it makes one very aware of the gaps in one's own psychological makeup. And when you go down and you see these, maybe I'll quickly do that, is look at these ones. So if I look at love, compassion, and empathy in my own case, in a physical sense, I'm overweight. So I'm not honoring myself or loving myself in a physical way. In an emotional way, maybe I self-soothe myself with food, which was a way that a little child learned to do so. Mentally, I think I'm fine. Intellectually, fine. Socially, culturally, and spiritually, maybe fine. But it means I have 2 gaps, emotional and physical, that show that I'm not balanced and that my growth is not as it should be. So there are little gaps in my emotional and physical makeup that I need to learn to fix in order to become a fully balanced individual. So maybe I'll stop there. Thanks.
Kona?
Yeah, that's such a wonderful sharing, Martha. And you opened up the door of opportunity for us to have a conversation about a very important bias, which is an international concern, and that is the state of homelessness and poverty and how we respond. And I'm wondering if how the group feels about possibly unpacking that against the 7 core values, and if we all look at our own biases and have a bit of discussion about that. Because if we all unpack that, it really can open the circuitry on our planet to people who maybe don't have these conversations. Because we have a thought about what do we do, but we don't talk openly about it. And it's a huge conflict in a lot of areas of the world. So what do you guys think about that?
Oh, I agree. I think that is a very important issue to tackle. I mean, one of the 7 core values is equality, and that the wealth gap that's widening and in our world is really completely against the value of equality. And I do think that until, we're able to better bridge that gap, we won't be moving towards peace. So I think it's very important. Kona?
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines is not from the receiver perspective, but us as givers, because Martha is very impacted by how she was raised and her thought processes and all of that. And I think that one, because this
Juan is lost.
Yeah,
Yes.
I saw that we lost
We
him.
seem to have lost Juan. Yeah.
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 I'm wondering if some of the things that you're experiencing with your physical and emotional lack of care might be tied into some of this that you described as, how your father treated you, which is now affecting how you feel in this situation by giving to somebody, but when you ask for something back, not receiving. And I think that's a very interesting dynamic, not necessarily, well, for many reasons. I don't want to go into too much detail, but there's more to that entire dynamic that I think is important to explore, like not just your biases and expectations, but what does charity and giving to a person on a regular basis without an expectation of them giving back in some way due to their personal psyche and experience in the world, right? So this is, and I don't know the race of the person that you're talking about, but in our colonialism, by giving, right, we create poverty scenarios by being the white savior.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there's a reason to unpack it from that perspective more so than just trying to solve the world's poverty problems. We're gonna I'm suggesting that we talk about it in a very personal way in how do we view giving and what is the expectation, and according to the 7 core values, if you have this this relationship with somebody who needs assistance, what's the best way to do that, to feed their life with 7 core values. That's kind of the perspective I was going with. I wanted to more fully explain that. I hope we get one back.
Marthe?
Thank you so much, Kona, and thanks, B. One thing that really struck me, there's a wonderful saying that says homelessness is a catastrophic loss of family. Hi, Juan. Welcome
Hi, Juan.
back. And so I quickly want to go into that idea of homelessness being a catastrophic loss of family, because these people, the two people that I feed, are probably Khoisan related, of the indigenous peoples of our planet, even, but of Africa. But I interviewed both of them, and both of them had catastrophic family situations. Once the woman's mother was killed when she was 6 by her partner, leaving her with a 1-year-old to take care of at the age of 6. And the other one was born and left by the mother. And he only discovered who his father was when he was 18, because his father had been in prison all his life. And so one thing is that, yes, I love what you said about being the white savior, because in a sense, this has put me forever in that position of the person who lives in a rented apartment and people who live in the street. But also because apartheid destroyed the family. And so, in a sense, there's a direct, living in the most unequal country in the world, being a person of an oppressor race, there's a direct relationship.
Mhm.
And so, yes, there's something very uncomfortable about their dependence on the person who represents the previous oppression. Yeah. So it is very complex and bears looking at with greater care.
May I say something?
Please do.
I am very much like you, Marthe. I am very hard on myself as well. Although I do have to say, I'm very impressed with the fact that you have gone out of your way to help, because of your empathy and compassion and love, to actually help a homeless or a less privileged person on a regular basis. So, I do try to give food. I don't carry cash anymore, just because of, I guess, everything is digital now. But, if I do have a chance, I do sometimes try to either give away food or buy something for people. But I just think that's amazing. And I also, how should I say, I honor the way you feel and how you perceive your struggles. From my perspective, I think you sound like a gem of a person to me. I think it's amazing that, you are striving so hard to become the best that you can be. But I'd like to see you give yourself a little bit more credit, because based on people I know and based on my personal life experience, you are way up ahead of a lot of people. I think you not only think about doing, but really that generosity of giving away money like that, unique. I must say, it's a very unique. So I would like to see you give yourself some credit, but I also do, I respect how you analyze your own thinking and your biases, because I'm also the same way. I'm in the same headspace. I am hard on myself. I criticize myself a lot, and I don't give myself enough self-love in maybe slightly different ways. I'm also overweight, but anyway, I just think that you are, and all of us here are really great people, but I feel so touched that you would go out of your way and regularly give money to somebody. Like, that in itself, to me, that's huge, because I don't know that many people who do that. As for the white savior idea, that's also, it's almost like generational trauma, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'd like to see, you know, people feel less responsible for that. In other words, try not to take on the guilt of what has happened in the past. You know, like some things have, oh my goodness, just one moment. Sorry.
So,
I'm
so
trying to charge my phone and I don't want it to go to die. Okay. I think it's great that you're self-analyzing like this, but and I see your struggle as, you know, a white person, but the way from my perspective, since I can't really personally relate to it, at least culturally, I personally don't blame or have any negative feelings for, you know, a white person, because I see that as, you know, things that happened in the past that we are born into. So I don't know. I sense that you feel a little bit of guilt. Is that correct?
it is, and I know that it's a spirit blocker. Absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
Maybe not guilt. I feel shame. I feel shame for the conditions that humans have put others in.
And that to me is not anything that you are responsible for. It is, there are certain things that I'll get to you, Kona, I saw your hand. There are certain things, well, we're born into this world, and there are certain things that obviously we cannot control and that we're forced to, I guess, make the best of it, right? So I don't know. I don't think that, I mean, I don't want to say, I want to validate your feelings, but I would like to see you try to feel less shame, because I understand where you're coming from and how you would feel shame, but I don't think there is anything shameful about what you are doing. It's quite admirable, I think. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Kona?
Thank you, V.
Yeah, I have two thoughts or two directions for this. And one, I have a curiosity, because your history, the person's history, where they come from. And my curiosity is other than, caring for them in the ways that you do, if you've had conversations with them, apparently you know them well enough to know how they've lost their family and how they're traumatized. I'm imagining, but curious, if they know who you are and the work that you do for South Africa and your work with South African women in dialogue, and how that might positively impact their perception of you as being a kind person and not just a white person who's giving, right? And then my other thought is, we look back, if you'll scroll back up to the 7 core values, and let's unpack the actions that you're taking are honoring life, right? You're honoring, you have enough sense of the value of their lives to contribute to their life and sustaining them. You care about their quality of life. I'm sure that what you give them improves the quality of their life. You're giving them the opportunity, with valuing their life, the opportunity to grow. And then the curiosity is that when you have this exchange, are you experiencing a quality with them, or are you giving them a space to feel equal with you? And if so, how is that happening? And if not, how could you do that? And then you're clearly operating from a place of empathy, compassion, and love. So the equality piece is, how does equality fit into this dynamic in your exchange? If it's there, how can you continue to improve that so that they're feeling equal with you and have the opportunity to grow and experience life more fully?
That is
Very
very
good.
beautiful. Sorry, Juan.
Sí, bueno, escuché lo que dijiste y sí, los 7 valores creo que nos enseñan a quitarnos esas preocupaciones. Hay un mandato que es que nosotros tenemos que mejorar nuestra calidad de vida, amar nuestra vida, crecer, ser empático con los demás, tener mucha compasión con los demás y por último, amarlos sobre todas las cosas igual como nos amamos a nosotros, igual como amamos a nuestro Padre. Creo que ese es el mandato que nos han dado. Cada uno tiene una obligación o tiene un plan de vida cada uno y nosotros a veces queremos cambiarle la vida a otros y de repente caemos en lo que se llama violación del libre albedrío de las personas. La caridad que se hace de dar comida, de mantener personas que no trabajan, que no están haciendo algo por su vida, yo creo que es una caridad que no tiene fin, pues, que no tiene una finalidad buena. Jesús dijo, no le des un pescado, enséñalos a pescar. Y yo creo que la mejor manera de demostrar compasión hacia los demás es enseñarlos a ser mejores, a entender que son personas magníficas, que son personas con un potencial muy grande, que son hijos de Dios y que por lo tanto heredaron, mejor dicho, la tierra en este sentido. Todos tenemos derecho a ser felices, a valorar nuestra vida, a tener muy buena calidad de vida. Tenemos que crecer como personas, tenemos que tratar a los demás iguales que nosotros, porque nadie es tiene más valor ante Dios que nadie. Todos tenemos el mismo valor para Él. Él nos ama igualito, con toda intensidad a todos. Por lo tanto, yo no entiendo por qué debes avergonzarte por las acciones que hacen otros. Lo más importante es que usted no haga esas acciones. Y si las puede prevenir, mucho mejor todavía. Yo considero que eres una persona muy magnífica, muy grande. Y tienes un plan de vida muy bien delineado. Que bueno, solamente tus ajustadores y el Padre lo saben. Nosotros en realidad no sabemos nuestro plan de vida. Pero yo no lo animaría a estar dando mucha caridad. Yo animaría más bien a enseñar a las personas a ser agradecidas, a entender que son personas magníficas, que tienen un potencial muy grande. Y yo creo que con eso tú estás mostrando lo que es la compasión, la empatía y el amor por la humanidad. Porque cada vez que tú ayudas a alguien a ser mejor, tú estás ayudando al Padre a salvar un alma más para Él. Gracias.
Thank you,
That's kind
Juan.
of
That
where
was
I was
beautiful.
going.
Thank you, Juan. Yeah,
Much
absolutely.
better said than I did.
No, equally well said. I love the equality part through UB. I really love the equality part of how do we, and it's interesting, the man is deeply spiritual, probably even more so than I am. But it's so interesting is how do we then continuously get other people on the same level? And there's a beautiful example of Jesus. It says that Jesus, I must say it's somewhere in the Urantia book, that before Jesus spoke to somebody at the well, he would ask a question that they would know the answer to in order to equalize the power between the two. So Jesus had an inbuilt way of equalizing his incredible power with the lack of power of those around him. So that's a lovely lesson. I also would like to hear Juan talk about his own sharing on the 7 values.
Juan, do you feel comfortable sharing?
Aplicado a mi vida. ¿Es?
Yes?
Sí. Bueno, yo por lo menos yo convivo con mi hijo, mi segundo hijo y mi nieta mayor. Vivimos 3 aquí y tenemos 2 mascotas, un mono y un perro. Como ustedes sabrán
A
ya que
monkey?
un mono y un perro son seres muy difíciles de controlar. Las mascotas son de mi nieta. Mi nieta tiene un amor por los animales y entonces cada vez que ve un animalito por ahí quiere traérselo a la casa. Lo que pasa es que ella se olvida después que ella es la madre de ellos y delega su función de madre a otros, a mí y a todos. De todas maneras, yo trato de comprenderla a ella, de saber que ella es un ser en formación todavía, no lo hace de mala fe, que a veces le falta un poquito de abrir un poquito más la conciencia, de saber que las demás personas también tienen necesidades emocionales. Y trato de llevar mi vida lo más posible. Hoy por lo menos estoy haciendo la reunión aquí en mi cuarto, aunque tiene una conexión muy mala, pero a veces el escándalo, la broma no me deja a veces concentrar en lo que estoy haciendo. Pero bueno, yo lo trato con paciencia, trato de llevar eso con paciencia, de entender que cada día ella irá entendiendo más de la vida, se va dando cuenta, porque uno tiene que dar el ejemplo es con uno mismo, ser un faro de luz uno, para que los demás vean el comportamiento. Si ella me ve por lo menos con una actitud de enfado o algo así, eso no es una buena lección para ella. Que ella entienda que a pesar de todas las cosas, yo mantengo mi estado de ánimo positivo, tratando de entender las cosas como deben ser. Por lo general con las personas yo trato de ayudarlas en lo que yo puedo. Nunca me pongo en una situación en que yo no pueda, después que prometí ayudarlo, no poderlo ayudar. Siempre mido mis posibilidades de ayudar. A quien le pueda dar unas buenas palabras, se las doy. A quien le pueda ayudar cualquier cosa, lo hago, pero sin discriminar. Como ustedes sabrán, yo vivo en Venezuela y Venezuela es un país que no hay discriminación racial ni religiosa ni nada de esas cosas. Habrán grupitos que lo hacen, pero la mayoría de la población, todos convivimos con personas negras, con personas blancas, de todas las nacionalidades, chinos, japoneses, aquí tenemos de todo. Y es un país abierto, lamentablemente tenemos un gobierno dictatorial, pero a pesar de eso, seguimos con resiliencia, seguimos viviendo. No podemos enfrentarnos con el gobierno porque nos quita la vida y valoramos la vida, ¿verdad? Sin vida no podemos hacer nada. Yo no voy a hacer nada con ser héroe. Es importante mantener mi vida hasta que lleguemos a un mejor puerto, a un puerto seguro. Mientras tanto, me mantengo haciendo lo que pueda, contribuyendo en lo que pueda. Ahorita materialmente no puedo contribuir con nada, porque ahorita no tengo ingresos de ningún tipo. Pero en la parte espiritual, en la parte emocional, yo trato de siempre darle una palabra amiga, amable a una persona, sacarla a veces de esa amargura en la que vive. Bueno, así es que como yo veo los 7 valores humanos. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Juan.
Muchas
That was
gracias.
very, yeah, that was very good. I'm especially touched by what you said. You said previously you spoke about the fact that you practice love even towards your dictator last week. And today you said there's nothing one can do against the dictator because they will take away one's life, which is such a powerful thing because many people, you know, Daniel often spoke about the fact that if you are a refugee and you're going to move to another country, like go from Ethiopia to Italy, and you lose your life in a boat crossing over to Italy, you've made a bad decision because you shouldn't, even if your life was in danger, losing your life in the process is a bad decision because it doesn't honor the seven values. And obviously that's what happens daily. People are losing their lives in opposition to, you know, even the people who went into the Hamas, young men who went into Israel, so many of them lost their lives that very day. So it obviously was an example of a bad decision to lose your life while protesting for justice. Juan?
Sí, hablando de eso, Venezuela hace 20 años, la migración hacia otros países era muy poca, muy baja. Y las personas salían solamente de turismo. Pero la migración venezolana hacia otros países nunca había sido. A partir de 2017 empezó un éxodo pero masivo. Personas que perdieron la vida en el camino hacia Perú, hacia los Andes, hacia el sur. Muchas personas perdieron la vida, que dejaron sus vidas ahí. Todo por querer tener una mejor calidad de vida. Y llegaron a esos países también y llegaron a ser humillados. Cuestión que yo considero que tomaron una mala decisión, porque debieron haberse quedado aquí y seguir luchando, trabajando en lo que ellos saben hacer. Fueron a otros países a hacer un trabajo que aquí podían haberlo hecho también. No entiendo, y todavía hay gente que quiere irse. Y yo por lo menos no me voy, ni aliento a ninguno de mis familiares a que se vaya. Nos tocó vivir esto, tenemos que seguir adelante. Es una mala decisión salir a migrar porque se puede perder la vida Muchas vidas se han perdido en el estrecho de Darién, en el tapón de Darién. Eso es una zona entre Colombia y Panamá, una zona selvática, agreste, totalmente agresiva. Y muchos depredadores humanos también en la travesía. Entonces, se arriesgan a ir a perder la vida y que tener una mejor calidad de vida. Y, yo no lo entiendo, no entiendo eso. Adelante, Marta.
That is so true. Sure, that is so you actually experience it daily with the people leaving Venezuela. So that's a very powerful reminder how carefully we have to measure. I mean, it's the same what Kona, what you explained to me, how you have to measure the quality of the people receiving towards the generosity of the person giving. And yeah, so, and Juan's reminder that charity is not good. So charity has to turn into self-reliance. And if charity doesn't create self-reliance, you're doing it wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really hard thing because, you know, our empathy and compassion wants to make sure that the person's needs are met. Right? But the equality side needs to also lift them up to that place where they are self-reliant. The challenge becomes, you know, when you've got people, and I think this is the difference, and you have to be discerning. If you have a person who does not have the capacity to become self-reliant because of a disability or a PTSDs, and there's no emotional health, right? But
Yeah.
I'm curious now that you say this person is very spiritually sound, but there's clearly a block in their learning, because if the divine has connected with them, the divine would be helping them to also grow, unless this is a mutual learning experience for the both of you. And maybe that's a conversation over tea and say, you know, I'm having a struggle. This is my struggle. My struggle is wanting to be compassionate and get caring and giving and making sure your needs are met. But at the same time, I'm cognizant that I'm not creating equality for you, because I'm in the position of giving and you're always in the position of receiving. And in my world, that's not creating an equal lifestyle for you. So what is our solution? Do you have a proposed solution? Just have a conversation. And that's been the focus of my doctoral work, is to figure out how to generate those dialogues and those conversations around the core values. You know, say, I value your life enough. I don't want you to live in a space of charity because you have so much value. But I don't want you to go without your needs being met. So how can I best help you? See what they say.
Hey, I just wanted to say one thing. He often, he must be 50 something, 57, maybe she's 38, but she looks about 60. But he's often said, but we live where everybody else is paying millions to live. We are renting an apartment in a very wealthy part of town, probably the wealthiest. And he says, but I sleep here on the beach, where other people, you know, and the apartments around him costs 20 million rand or $1 million. So he says, but we get to live here where everybody else wants to be, and it costs us nothing. So they're very happy. And maybe also because of the Khoi-san linkages in their life, their people would have been nomadic in a different life. And they live in a country with one of the highest levels of unemployment as well. And I suspect he's also come out of jail, which means that his chances are already so much less than anybody else's. And so what we working against is so many layers. If it were possible for people to say, I mean, I've often thought when I was on the ward committee, but one can start a garden and say to people, you can come and work for so many hours a day in exchange for food. And I still think that maybe that is what the whole of the society has to do. In Texas, there's a beautiful model where they've just created, somebody bought a large piece of land and they've created little miniature homes, or, you know, and they have
Tiny
development
houses.
practitioners, tiny houses, but they have development practitioners living amongst homeless people. And everybody just has either a little caravan or a tiny house, and they've just created this beautiful community. So it makes perfect sense. And I know in Finland and other countries, they just say, well, give homeless people homes. That's the simple thing. Start there. So yes, it needs a whole society approach. And it certainly is part of, we are trying as women to take a model we first saw in Chile. Chile reduced poverty from 45% after Pinochet to 18% 25 years later by paying young men and women to be trained as family development workers, really, and to go into each indigent family for 3 to 5 years and link them to 53 indicators of family well-being. This is a model that we saw in Chile. We brought it to South Africa. We piloted it from 2009 to 2015, and we're hoping to take it back to this new government. So that for me seems a wonderful example of what Spirit wants. It wants us to start at the level of the family. It wants to pull government tight through the individual needs of the family. And then coordinate all of civil society based on those needs. So there is I'm aware of a model that we've seen that I've been working with since 2006 when we first went to Chile. So there are ways, and I guess we just have to work harder to say, how do we do this? Spirit guide us so that South Africa at least can go from the most unequal country to a country that does what Spirit asks us, to start at the level of the family. And change democracy as we know it. So yes, we do have solutions. We just need to try harder.
And stay in dialogue. Just those simple conversations. What do you really want? How can I best help you? If this is the best solution, you know, if this keeps you, you know, and then the other part is the dialogue with Spirit. Spirit, am I doing the best thing for this person? And if you say that I am, then I'll continue doing this endlessly until you tell me to do otherwise. As long as I'm doing it with the heart of giving up, improving the quality of life, whatever you want, Spirit. And I've done that. I mean, in all of the communities that I've lived and traveled in, the one thing that I have learned, and I'm challenged by the charity model especially with the colonial mindset, is to keep cash and or food and or water bottles. When I traveled down in Atlanta all the time, sometimes people just needed something to eat and I would have a granola bar. Some people, if they just need a drink of water, I would have a water bottle. And sometimes they need cash, but I also do it by the Spirit, because the Spirit says, no, not today, not this person. Then I don't, because I don't know what Spirit is doing in their lives.
Yeah.
Spirit knows what Spirit's doing in everybody's lives. So that's where you check in with your thought adjuster, the indwelling Spirit, and say, what do I do today? I see this situation. What's my role here, rather than just operating out of ego or emotion or whatever, because then that is honoring the work of Spirit in that person's life. That's one way that I approach these different situations. And then there's no shame, there's no guilt, because you're cooperating with the divine, right? So you can
Yeah.
let go of the shame and the guilt and the connection to the past and simply operate in the present for the right reasons.
That's very true, because I have often mentioned them in my conscious contact, but I haven't often asked, Spirit, what would you like me to do? And I often do take a tin of openable tuna or a sandwich or whatever when I go, because we have people everywhere waiting. But you asked an important question that says, what do you want? The dialogue with the self. So there are two things, the dialogue with spirit and the dialogue with the self, because I often have dialogues with spirit about self-love and all of that. But to actually have the dialogue with the self as well is such an important one. And one that I maybe neglect, is to really say, if you were going to do anything differently, what if your life was going to be any different from what it is? And I spend a lot of my time with people. I spend weekends on Sundays. I go and see old people. I pick up one 86-year-old. I take him to see his 87-year-old. I take him back. So it really is, what do you want? Because I'm very aware of the needs of others. It's a gift I've been given. I'm always aware. I walk in and say, does the dog have water? Does this, do the birds have water? Does the rat have food? So, yep, it really is. I've been given an awareness of the needs of others that have been with me since I was a child. But the important thing is, what do you want? To say that to yourself, and as you said, have that daily conscious contact relationship with spirit to say, how would you like me to deal with what I experience? Yeah.
Well, and it's an interesting thing too, because one of my observations for people who are heavy into charity is that that is an escape mechanism from dealing with the self. If you're taking care of other people, you're too busy to deal with your own trauma. It's covered up because it's like the 3-year-old's bottle. This is my soothing mechanism. This is my coping mechanism.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do this instead of deal with the real trauma of how I feel.
Yeah.
And so that's one thought. The other thought I have is, like, I don't have as much personal time as I used to. So when I'm going to go and be with my boys, my grandkids outside, what can I do for myself while I'm with them doing their thing? Well, we're going to go, they want to go to the park. Well, I'm going to sit and bask in the sunshine and enjoy the moment. Or I'm going to walk with them, or I'm going to kick the ball and get my exercise.
Yeah.
So when you're taking a person here, or you're taking a person there, well, what can I do for myself in the moment that is deeply gratifying while I'm in service?
Yeah. I must say, I think all of us are feeling that need to be in the sun more often. So I think that is something that I do, even with the 86-year-old, is visit him and say, can we sit in the sun?
Especially in winter time in your country.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hi, Juan. Is B still with us? Oh. Hi,
Yo
Juan.
considero que lo que está haciendo con los ancianitos es algo muy piadoso, muy bonito. Ellos no necesitan comida, pero sí necesitan amistad, compasión, amor, sentirse que todavía son personas. Y yo creo que lo que haces es algo encomiable, eso es algo que es increíble. Yo no lo he podido hacer. Ojalá un día yo pueda hacer eso. Eso es la entrega total hacia las personas. Eso es amor hacia sí mismo y hacia la humanidad.
Thank you. Give me 1 second. Hi, Ilona. Is that you? Hi. Hello. I just want to make sure that you're safely back. Okay. Please have some milk or whatever you need. Okay, sorry. It's just, I have 2 boys staying, and one's just come back from his cycling.
No worries. Well, this is great discussion, I think. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling wonderful.
Yeah.
Is Bee still with us?
She's having technical difficulties with her phone. She said it was overheating.
But I think she's
Yes,
taken off the... Hi, Bee.
I am here. I've been listening and I've also been coughing. So I have put myself on mute. So if I apologize that I can't continue to facilitate, I am now on my iPad, but unfortunately I cannot get the screen where I can see all your faces. So
Oh, I see.
yes, many technical difficulties.
But Bee, did you want to share anything? Or did you have anything to share?
If I had to share anything, it would just be similar to yours. My continuing struggle to love myself more, and try to be more patient with myself and try to be less critical. I am that type who is always criticizing myself and, saying to I have self-talk that says, oh, you should have done better, or, if only you were blah, blah, blah. That is something that I work on a daily basis. And also, here's one thing that I am working on, and I've been working on for my entire life, actually, and that is my fear of conflict. I am the type of person who always just wants peace, but also has a hard time sometimes speaking up for herself. And so I find it very difficult to engage in conversations, especially with my partner, where I feel that there is a pattern of misunderstanding, and that once things are discussed, it'll eventually turn out to be a conflict. So that is I guess, a mindset that I'm trying to work past and make myself more vulnerable, and face my fears rather than let them overcome me. I remember what Sondjah said through Kona, and it's always stuck in my mind when he asked is whether or not fear was one of the 7 core values.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, it was one of those touche moments where, you got me. And so that has been, I try to remind myself of that. I'm still working on it. I feel a little bit more optimistic and a little bit more brave now. So, but I think that's all I have to share, other than, a lot has been discussed today about how we all try our best to be the best versions of ourselves. And it's very important to remember to be kind to ourselves as well as to others. And sometimes it's that can be a challenge.
Thanks, Bee. I wanted to ask you something because I was very touched by Jacques' question to Sondjah last time about how to have his wife appreciate his presence as a facilitator as part of this group more. And because she thought it was a waste of time. And Sondjah's answer was merely, you have to love her better. You have to love her. And the more you love her, the easier she will find the whole conflict. And I just thought, you and I, who are both struggling with self-love, I wonder if just by focusing on loving your partner, whether the self-love wouldn't also just blossom. because I was just wondering if, I know Spirit always says apply love to the problem. So seeing that we don't know how to love ourselves better, I thought, and people have told us, if you can't love yourself, you can't love someone else. I was wondering if starting by loving them rather than self-loving, it won't also blossom into self-love. And I know it seems counterintuitive, but I'm just thinking that maybe part of self-love is other love. And if we can't see it in ourselves, maybe by practicing it on others, it will start reflecting and it will become self-love.
I like that idea. I think, yeah, I think that's actually a different way of approaching something. And I guess they reflect back against, like, towards each other. It's like,
Yeah.
so I guess somebody has to start the reflection somewhere.
Well,
I see
and Bea, I
Kona's
know you
hand is
can't
up.
see us. Yeah, Juan's hand was up, and then I have a thought about that as well.
Okay, go ahead, please. Whoever had their
Juan?
hand, if somebody could take over the facilitator role, like you, Kona, that.
Sure, we'll help you with that. Juan, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Sí, lo que están hablando ustedes es acerca del segundo valor fundamental, la calidad de vida. Para tener calidad de vida tenemos que ser felices, tener muy buenas relaciones con los demás, ejercitar nuestro cuerpo, mantener una actitud mental buena. No es solamente tener bienes materiales, es también la parte espiritual y la parte emocional nuestra. Eso es calidad de vida, ser feliz a pesar de las circunstancias. Y para ser feliz lo que hay que aplicar es amor a todo. Por ejemplo, no sé si ustedes han leído acerca del control mental Silva. ¿Han escuchado de eso?
Yeah, yes, yeah. The Silver
Ok,
Method.
una cosa que aprendí de eso fue lo siguiente. Si algo nos gusta, tenemos que disfrutarlo a lo máximo. Si no nos gusta, tenemos que obviarlo. Pero resulta que no lo podemos obviar porque es parte de nuestra vida. Entonces, en resumen de eso, es que tenemos que cambiar nuestro punto de vista acerca de las cosas y aplicar nuestro punto de vista a partir del amor. Si yo por lo menos detesto lavar platos, una forma de cambiar mi punto de vista es lavar los platos y tratar de aceptarlo en mi vida, de que es algo que debo hacer y que no debo odiar. Y así como muchas cosas que detestamos, pero tenemos que enfrentarnos a ellos para poderlos tener control de nuestras emociones, de nuestras cosas. No que algo sea el que maneje nuestras emociones, sino nosotros. Nosotros decidimos qué nos hace feliz. No es otra persona, ni un objeto, ni ninguna circunstancia que nos haga feliz. Nosotros debemos decidir qué es lo que nos hace ser feliz. Y yo creo que debemos entonces abocarnos a eso, a cambiar nuestro punto de vista hacia las cosas que no nos gustan. Y no es que nos gusten, sino que por lo menos llevar a nivel cero esa antipatía hacia lo que no nos gusta. Entonces, la calidad de vida tiene que ver entonces mucho con nuestro estado de ánimo, con nuestra forma de ver la vida, de cambiar nuestro punto de vista, aceptar las cosas tal como son no querer cambiar a los demás. Porque ¿quién nos dice que nosotros somos los que estamos en lo correcto y no es que estamos equivocados? Lo que es verdad para uno puede ser una mentira para otro, y lo que es bueno para alguien puede ser muy malo para otro. Entonces, la calidad de vida tiene que ver mucho, entonces, cómo nos tratamos nosotros mismos. Hacemos ejercicio, estamos comiendo sano, no estamos violentando el cuerpo de alguna forma, no estamos tomando algo que no deba, el cuerpo no sea bueno para el cuerpo. Yo entiendo que nada es prohibido. Lo único prohibido es no querer a Dios. Pero lo demás todo uno lo puede hacer. Entonces, claro, viéndolo desde el mejor punto de vista, o sea, tratar de llevar nuestras emociones es lo más importante, controlar nuestras emociones y de verdad sentirse feliz a pesar de que no tengamos esas comodidades que queramos tener, pero en nuestro interior estamos en paz. Gracias.
Gracias.
Yeah, so Juan is talking about something similar to what I was going to say in a little bit different way. Is the emotion, so let's say be, for instance, in your situation where you're dealing with your emotions towards a partner, it's often what we see in others that we don't like about ourselves. And so if you're saying that's this thing that they're doing is something I don't like, then you go back and say, do I do that anywhere? Is that something that I don't like about myself? And if it is, go, oh my gosh, I need to fix that thing in myself first. Well, in a similar way, Martha, I'm wondering if you have biases towards people who are overweight or overeat or don't take care of themselves, and you have a perception about them that you're holding on and haven't addressed. And so then that's like, this is the thing you don't like in yourself, but maybe it's the reverse. Maybe it's a bias you have about somebody else, and maybe examine those things and go, you know what? I don't care what they eat. So what? She's overweight. What? It doesn't matter. And if you generate love and your bias towards someone else, maybe it comes back to you, right? So it's it's going back to examining our biases and assumptions in this emotional thing that, like Juan was talking about. We are responsible for those emotions, but perhaps it has something to do with our perspective towards the other that's interfering with our perspective towards ourselves. Yes.
That is so beautiful. If thanks through you as well, B. Did you want to respond to that, B?
No, I thought that was awesome as well. Thank you very much for that. That's a very good reminder. And excellent
I have
advice.
to tell myself, and that's like my conflict with Blessed Byron. Well, what is it about Byron that is so much me that I get frustrated? Because we're actually very much alike, and we've had some, we've had our moments of spatting and then coming back together and spatting and coming back together. But what is it really? It's like, well, he's as strong-willed as I am, and what does he not like about me? Well, I'm as strong-willed as he is, and I don't let him be a pushover to me. I push back. We've had those conversations. And so I try to do that for myself, is if I'm having a conflict with someone, go, there's something about myself in this situation that I'm unhappy with, or it wouldn't be a conflict, and then I have to deal with myself personally.
That's excellent.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it's such a beautiful, I know Gary Zukav always talks about that, is, where's the little Hitler in the self, or where's the dictator in the self, or in what way are you prostituting yourself? So I love that for B, in terms of maybe what you can't, maybe what the partner is making difficult for one is the part of the self that's reflected in the partner, because then definitely loving the partner will get you to love yourself, because you're tolerating the part that you find unbearable in yourself. So yeah, really powerful stuff. Thank you.
No, thank you. I am going to consciously work on that.
Just, you know, when I'm struggling with a person, I just send them love and gratitude. I just, in my prayer time, my meditation, I send them love and gratitude. I send them forgiveness, love and gratitude. And then going back to Spirit, let me see them through your eyes. What help me find a way to love them from your perspective, to generate, you know, something other than my own perspective, rather than sitting in my own place, in my own emotions, is, you know, let me see that person from a different perspective, or your perspective. And then you see that's where it goes back to seeing the divine in others, right? Finding what God acknowledges, or Spirit acknowledges, or loves about the people in your life that you haven't seen because you've been focusing on this other thing. And those things just start to melt away when you see from a different perspective. Sometimes, I mean, it's not always easy. 2 marriages, 2 divorces. Listen, I know these challenges. These are lessons learned along the way. So a side note to that, when my second husband and I were at our worst struggling, right? And it was this, and I was like, okay, look, God, what do you want me to do? Very clearly, wash his feet when he comes home from work. Put a chair by the door and wash his feet. And I'm like, really? It's like, yeah, wash his feet. And so I started doing that, and he didn't get it at first, but he complied. He let me wash his feet, and it changed me. It didn't change him, it changed me. And later he admitted to my kids that he realized, he thought I was mocking him, but he later realized after the divorce that I genuinely loved him, but I couldn't figure out how to reach him because he found himself unlovable. So, you know, the lesson for me was to go that extra mile to love someone. If you love someone completely and they leave you, you've done everything. You've done everything that you can do in loving completely. The love is the most important thing, that we generate that thing, even with people that we're in conflict with. And it'll either, you know, love breaks those walls. There's not a barrier that can stand before true love. There's just nothing. So they either run from it, or it breaks and it melts this hardness of heart. It's just powerful. So I only share these things from, you know, failed relationships where Spirit just led me. Just love. Yeah.
That is so true, actually. Love is the true healer.
It's the glue. Sal can call it the money, but love is the glue. Sorry.
Love is the glue.
Yes.
I was also wondering if we could ask Sondjah to come in. I don't know, B, if there's anything else you wanted to say.
No, I think this has been excellent discussion, and I'm so happy to see everyone here contribute to this conversation. And so I'm very happy about that.
Likewise.
Me too.
Let me go into meditative space and see if Sondjah would like to come through. The only commentary that I am perceiving is that Sondjah is pleased and that what we have said has been well said. The discussion has been thorough, and there's not a need for any other explicit commentary necessarily. And unless perhaps you have a question, and I can see if Sondjah wants to address a specific question.
I have a question for Sondjah. I just wanted to ask if there's any guidance on the practice of self-love. Thank you.
Hello, this is Sondjah. Thank you, Marthe, for that question. The practice of self-love is indeed challenging to people on your planet because of the rebellion. You were so deprived of divine love in this process that it is a foreign concept to you, and we are desperately trying to recreate the patterns in the planet and in your mindal patterns to redistribute the perfect pattern of relationship with the Divine Father so that you can experience this self-love appropriately as is your divine inheritance. So please do not be hard on yourself in this process and understand that you are loved beyond measure. Love is your inheritance between yourself and your divine parents, as well as between each of you on the planetary plane. Love is indeed the glue and a key part of your existence. So if you can possibly understand letting go of the lack of love and embrace the concept that it is your divine inheritance right and a priority for the celestials for you to receive this, maybe that will help you move out of this space of lack of self-love. Does that make sense?
It certainly does. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And yes, you are indeed loved beyond your comprehension. Even as humans go, your understanding of true love is very limited. So think of it as you are the drop of water in the vast ocean, and you are surrounded by love. It is that deep and that intense and that thick. You are completely and utterly embraced in a universal love pattern. And when you are in meditation, connect with your thought adjuster to help you realize this and experience this at a greater depth and detail than perhaps you have done before. You are relying upon your experiences, your thought patterns to create this opportunity of self-love when indeed it is as close as the air that you breathe. So shift your focus into experiencing the divine love for you in this meditative practice, and it will become more apparent how surrounded you are by divine love. And this will indeed shift your own personal mindal and energy and spiritual patterns to feel it, perceive it, and then again extend it.
Thank you so much, Sondjah. Thank you, Kona.
You're very welcome. Is
Gracias,
there
Kona.
anything else? Well, if there is nothing else, this has been a pleasure to be with you today, to listen to your thoughts, your explorations in the 7 core values. Again, as I've said before, we value this in your discussions on this side of the veil. We're very pleased that you are taking the time to do this with each other, it creates a tremendous tsunami ripple in the fabric of your planet. So thank you for your time in doing this today, and we wish you many blessings throughout your day. I'll take my leave now.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sondjah.
Sondjah. Thank you, Kona.
Muchas gracias.
I like the idea of the tsunami ripple, actually. It's interesting that Sondjah said that. Because I often,
Why?
yes. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just asking you why.
Oh, asking why? I'm sniffling because of my cold. Sometimes I wonder whether or not our thought patterns and our interactions do increase our light, I guess. I see as each as a node of light. And if you want to be a node of light, you can be a node of light. And then I see all these nodes kind of interconnecting to each other on this planet. And I think that anytime a few of the nodes get brighter, that everybody gets brighter.
I have this image of 4 sparklers, and if you take 4 sparklers and you put them together, you get this massive brighter light than if we were all those separate nodes. So I think the tsunami is us coming together to share in this moment, which creates the larger ripple.
Right. Yeah, I see. It's like I look at it as a divine matrix of light almost on Earth, and that it's represented by us individuals, and that our task is to not only create more light for ourselves, create light as a group, which attracts the attention of others. Almost like what Makiventa has said, that if you live your life well, people will automatically become interested in what it is that you have. And that what you're doing to be happy. So, yeah, no, that was really great.
That's how I found Jesus. I was like, my Christian friends are happy and I'm not. What do they have that I don't have? Well, they have Jesus. How interesting. I think I need to know about this Jesus guy. And that's literally started me on my trek. Yeah, I was raised in a religious home, but we didn't have happiness or joy. But my Christian friends in particular had this joy, and I said, that's got to be about Jesus, because that's when I experienced the love of God in a Catholic church. I didn't become Catholic. I just started looking for Jesus. So yeah, I think it's important. It's exactly that, we live our life well, and people want to know what it is that we have, because they want what we have. They want the joy. They want the peace. They want the self-love, right? They want the self-confidence. So they're going to go, what do you have that I don't have? That's exactly it.
Well, lately I've been trying very hard not to hide my spirituality. I think there's a perception in larger society that you're almost a little bit crazy, or, to be spiritual, right? And I'm just hoping that if I find the right words or the right way to express my spirituality in a way that people can relate to, that maybe it'll be easier for people to have a conversation about spirituality without feeling like people are perceiving them as crazy or weird. Or it would be nice if these types of conversations were more natural in our society.
especially you as a scientist and physician. I imagine that those circles make it very difficult.
Actually, yes, I suppose in a way it does. But there's one thing that I was born with, and Marthe says she was born caring about others. I was born having to be myself and having a hard time not being myself, for better or for worse. But I finally realize at this point of my life that it's actually for the better. So I think perhaps, I don't know, people think I'm crazy, but I've gotten to the point where I care much less about what they think. And surprisingly, I am able to have different levels of spiritual talk with people, because some people are spiritual without an actual scaffold, like a construct. And then there are people who have a specific construct, such as Jesus, Christianity. And so I don't know, I think I've learned how to speak in many languages, if I may say. I think it's a matter of just choosing the right words when speaking to somebody. So, for example, if somebody is religious, then obviously you can use religious terms. If somebody is merely spiritual, you can use spiritual terms. And if somebody isn't at all, you can also speak about things like gut feelings and intuition, things that they might be able to personally relate to. So I've learned that, I learned that I can speak to all kinds of people about things.
That's very good.
Excelente.
Well, do we have anything else we need to discuss for today? We've had a very thorough discussion.
We've had a beautiful discussion. Thank you. You did beautiful facilitation, B.
Oh,
Excellent. Good job, B.
Thank
Even
you.
with the fried phone.
My belief is that we facilitate each other, and that,
Muy buen trabajo, Vi.
yes, so
Great
I'm
job.
glad we
Yeah.
had this discussion. I'm proud that we all contributed quite equally today.
Yes.
And I think I like to see that everyone feels comfortable sharing their, not only their strengths, but their opportunities to grow, not weaknesses, opportunities. So I don't know if you read my email, but that's my new way of looking at something. Rather than perceiving that I have weaknesses, I instead try to perceive that I have opportunities to grow.
I love that.
So with that, should we, it's getting late, should we postpone the discussion about the Mission Urantia to a next meeting?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that'll
good.
be better part of David's presentation.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Thank
I
you
did have one, I think I told you guys that I would have a conflict in my scheduling come fall, but then I realized there's a 3-hour time difference. So my class starts at 9:50, which is actually 12:50 my time. So even if we had a slight adjustment, or if I left at 12:45, then we could maintain this, but we still need a further discussion about times for this group if we want to continue to meet on Friday and what that looks like.
Certainly.
For the next time.
I agree.
Sí.
Okay.
Thank you very much to all of you. Hasta luego.
Gracias.
Hasta
Don
luego.
Juan.
Gracias. Gracias, que
Pete.
están lindas damas.
Thanks, everybody. Thank
Gracias
you.
por
Thank
todo.
you. See, he's the only Barón today. El único Barón hoy, sí.
Solo.
Entre las, sí.
Adiós.
Take care.
Adios.
Many thanks.
Love
Bye-bye.
to you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.